Story number 1, Whiteout on Everest. If you enjoy this content and want to see more, please subscribe and turn on notifications to support the channel. John had trained for this moment for years. Everest, the crown jewel of the Himalayas, loomed ahead, a stark silhouette against the pre-dawn sky. He was part of a seasoned expedition team, all veterans with countless peaks under their belts. Yet, a nagging unease gnawed at John. The weather forecast had been unsettling, hinting at an approaching storm. But the summit window, a narrow period of clear skies crucial for a successful ascent, was closing fast. The climb was grueling, a relentless battle against altitude and thinning air. Each step felt heavier than the last. They passed spent climbers descending, their faces etched with exhaustion and a hint of fear. News of a sudden blizzard further down the mountain trickled up. John argued for turning back, for caution. But the team leader, a man with a fierce reputation for summit fever, dismissed his concerns. The summit was within reach, they couldn't afford to lose this chance. Days bled into each other, a blur of white snow and bone-chilling winds. Rations dwindled, replaced by a gnawing hunger. As they neared the Hillary Step, the final obstacle before the summit, the storm hit with a fury. Visibility dropped to zero, replaced by a suffocating whiteout. The wind screamed, a monstrous banshee tearing at their tents. Huddled inside, John felt isolated, trapped in a fragile cocoon buffeted by nature's wrath. One by one, communication with other climbers on the mountain ceased. The radio crackled with static, a chilling testament to their predicament. Fear became a constant companion, a cold hand squeezing John's heart. Then, the unthinkable happened. A thunderous roar echoed across the mountain, followed by a sickening silence. An avalanche. John's stomach lurched. He knew, with a horrifying certainty, that part of the climbing route must have been wiped out. Days turned into a desperate struggle for survival. Rations were exhausted, replaced by dwindling emergency supplies. The wind howled incessantly, a constant reminder of their precarious situation. John began to hallucinate, his dreams filled with visions of home and warmth. He confided in a teammate, Sarah, a stoic climber who had become his anchor in the storm. They shared stories, memories, anything to keep despair at bay. One morning, after a particularly brutal night, John woke to an eerie quiet. The wind had died down. Groping out of his tent, he was met by a sight that took his breath away. The clouds had parted, revealing a breathtaking panorama of snow-capped peaks bathed in the golden glow of the rising sun. But the victory was tinged with a profound sadness. Below him, the avalanche path lay silent, a grim reminder of the cost of their ambition. John and Sarah descended, forever marked by the ordeal. They never reached the summit, but they learned a far more valuable lesson. The mountain wasn't something to be conquered, but respected. The experience forged an unbreakable bond between them, a shared story of survival that transcended the summit itself. As they reached base camp, weak but alive, John knew that returning home wasn't just about reaching safety, but a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure and the profound connection forged in the face of nature's fury. Story number 2, Lost in the Canyon Labyrinth. The midday sun beat down on Amelia, baking the red sandstone walls of Canyonlands National Park into an oven. Sweat stung her eyes as she navigated the labyrinthine canyons, following a barely their trail marked on her map. This solo hike was supposed to be a peaceful escape, a chance to reconnect with nature. But as the shadows grew longer and the air became thick with the chirping of unseen cicadas, a knot of unease tightened in her stomach. She'd strayed from the trail, lured by the promise of a hidden waterfall marked with a faded blue X now. After hours of scrambling over loose rock and prickly cacti, the X seemed like a distant memory. The map, once reassuring, now mocked her with its faded lines and cryptic symbols. Panic started to claw at the edges of her mind. Amelia forced herself to stop. Taking a deep breath, she tried to retrace her steps. But the relentless sun had erased any sense of direction. Each towering rock wall looked the same, the endless maze of canyons a cruel joke. Hours ticked by, measured only by the growing intensity of the afternoon sun and the deepening shadows. Fear, a serpent with cold scales, began to coil around her heart. As dusk dipped the canyon in shades of purple and orange, Amelia stumbled upon a shallow alcove. Exhausted and thirsty, she crawled in, seeking refuge from the approaching night. Tears welled up in her eyes. Loneliness, a heavy cloak, settled upon her. Visions of frantic search parties and news reports of a missing hiker flashed through her mind. Despair threatened to drown her. Suddenly, a flicker of movement in the fading light caught her eye. A small desert cottontail rabbit hopped into the alcove, its long ears twitching. It looked at Amelia with curious black eyes, then nibbled on some dry grass. A strange sense of calm washed over her. Here, in the vast emptiness, even a tiny creature offered a sliver of companionship. Night wrapped the canyon in an inky cloak, studded with a million pinpricks of stars. The temperature plummeted, sending shivers down Amelia's spine. She wrapped herself in her thin jacket, using her backpack as a pillow. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but the thought of venturing back into the darkness was too terrifying. Sleep came in fits and starts, filled with vivid dreams of rushing water and rescue helicopters. When dawn finally broke, painting the canyon walls with soft hues of pink and gold, a renewed sense of determination flared in Amelia. She remembered reading about desert survival techniques. Using a shard of rock, she managed to collect rainwater that had condensed on the cooler rock surfaces during the night. Hunger remained, but the water quenched her thirst and rekindled a spark of hope. Following the rising sun, the source of life in the arid landscape, Amelia set off again. The path, still treacherous, seemed less daunting in the daylight. Hours passed, filled with scrapes and thorns, but eventually, she spotted a faint trail winding toward the distant rim of the canyon. With a surge of adrenaline, she pushed herself forward. The climb out was grueling, but with each step, her heart grew lighter. As she finally crested the rim, the sight of a distant ranger station brought tears back to her eyes, this time tears of relief. When a park ranger spotted her, his face creased with concern, then broke into a broad smile. The ordeal had aged her by years, etched lines of worry on her face. But it had also imbued her spirit with a newfound resilience. Lost in the canyon, she had found herself, her strength, and a newfound respect for the unforgiving beauty of the wilderness. Story number 3, The Shark and the Surfer. The turquoise water shimmered under the relentless Hawaiian sun. Kai paddled out, a familiar thrill coursing through him as he surveyed the rolling waves. An experienced surfer, he felt at home in the ocean's embrace. Today, the waves were bigger than usual, promising an exhilarating challenge. As he waited for the perfect swell, a shadow flickered beneath the surface, momentarily blocking the sunlight. Kai dismissed it as a trick of the light, his focus solely on the approaching wave. Catching the crest, he rode it with practiced ease, carving graceful turns against the wall of water. But as he came crashing down, a searing pain ripped through his leg. A monstrous great white shark, its jaws agape, had lunged from the depths, taking a chunk out of his thigh. The world dissolved into a red haze. Panic surged through Kai, primal and terrifying. Blood stained the water crimson, swirling around him like a macabre halo. He thrashed, desperate to put distance between himself and the predator. Adrenaline surged, momentarily dulling the agonizing pain. He managed to scramble onto his board, the once familiar object now his only lifeline. The shark circled, its dark eyes fixated on him, a predator toying with its wounded prey. Kai paddled with all his might, the distance to the shore seeming impossibly vast. Each stroke sent fresh waves of pain shooting through his leg, threatening to overwhelm him. His lungs burned, his arms ached, but the primal fear of being devoured kept him moving. He spotted a small cove, a welcome sight amidst the vast expanse of the ocean. With a renewed burst of energy, he aimed for it, praying it was close enough. As he neared the shoreline, waves crashed against the rocks, threatening to smash him against the unforgiving barrier. Mustering his remaining strength, Kai kicked his board forward, using the last surge of a wave to propel himself onto the rocky shore. He collapsed on the sand, the pain a white-hot inferno in his leg. Rolling onto his back, he looked back at the churning water, half expecting to see the shark lurking nearby. But the ocean seemed indifferent, the waves rolling in and out as if his ordeal had never happened. Through a haze of pain and exhaustion, Kai reached for his phone, miraculously undamaged in his backpack. The battery light blinked red, a cruel reminder of his dwindling lifeline. But with a last flicker of hope, he managed to dial emergency services. As the sound of the ringing phone filled the air, it was a symphony more beautiful than any music he had ever heard. Help arrived in a blur of flashing lights and concerned faces. The paramedics treated his wound, their professionalism a stark contrast to the raw terror he felt. At the hospital, the doctor confirmed a severe bite, but, thankfully, no major arteries were severed. Kai faced a long recovery, but he was alive. The attack left an invisible scar etched deep within him. The ocean, once a source of joy, now held a new element of fear. But it also kindled a profound respect for the power and unpredictability of nature. Kai knew he would surf again, but with a newfound caution and awareness. The experience became a story he shared, a cautionary tale for other surfers. He became an advocate for ocean safety and shark conservation, working to bridge the gap between humans and these magnificent creatures. The attack had taken a piece of him, but it had also given him a new purpose, a way to turn his brush with death into something positive. If you enjoy this content and want to see more, please subscribe and turn on notifications to support the channel.